We've heard about really different examples of structuring steward ownership now, very different companies, very different kind of subjective ways of what it means for the company. But we also know a few things about steward ownership more structurally, and we want to hear about that from Professor Dr. Steen Thomsen from the Copenhagen Business School. He's the leading professor on foundation-owned businesses in Denmark, and he has really found a lot of data on steward-owned and foundation-owned businesses, because in Denmark we have so many steward-owned companies, for one, because the foundation law is really good for them there, and also because they have a crazy amount of data in Denmark on everything in the companies. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from you, Steen.
Thank you. So I'm really, really delighted to be here. I'm humbled to be on the same panel with Charles and Dame Sharon and Ines. You know, I really love these stories that they're telling, and it makes me feel that there's hope for a better world. And actually, it gives meaning to my own research, because I'm kind of the data guy who does this, you know. And so when I'm here, I feel energized. I feel, yes, I will go home and do more research. So I'm doing research not on steward ownership, because I think steward ownership, as Charles said, is the umbrella concept. So basically, underneath that, we can find different animals, so to say. So what I'm doing is I'm looking at companies which are owned by foundations. We have foundations which are owned by companies, but these are foundations which have the power, so to say, and they have a purpose, and this means that the companies are bound to a purpose. And I know you're trying to do another arrangement with the steward-owned companies, you know, where you work directly with the company entity and so on, and I applaud that, because this structure is, truth to be told, a little bit heavy for smaller companies. So I totally understand. Nevertheless, we have examples of companies which have made it big on this structure. For example, Novo Nordisk, which is the most valuable company in Europe right now, was a startup once and started as a foundation-owned company, so it is doable. So I'm looking at companies, you know, around the world, and I'm counting them. And I talk to them, and I like to talk to them, and they have very interesting stories. One thing I found is that I can kind of recognize them, you know. It's like there's a special style. They're not boasting. Very few of them are boasting. They don't boast, and they don't use money a lot. You know, they don't brag about their money, and they don't have fancy cars and so on. And they have wonderful companies where the employees are totally dedicated. Great values, so they're very big on values and so on. So what is it that I've found in these many cases and many studies that I've done? And I should say basically that it's true, right? We have this wonderful data in Denmark, and we can go extremely deep. We can tell your taxes, whether you've gone to jail, you know, and we can tell that for all individuals in Denmark. We got access to the public register, but we cannot do that when we go around the world. So I kind of mix results here. So basically, what have I found? Well, I found that the foundation model, the steward ownership model, is competitive. Surprise, surprise. Maybe it's not a surprise to you, but you should also remember you get the good stories mainly. But I try to get all stories, right? And yes, even if we take the bad ones also, you know, they are competitive. So they perform at least at the level of normal companies in terms of normal profitability measures. They also take less risks, which means risk-corrected returns are higher, and they may grow slower. Depends. Some studies say yes, some studies say no. The real story behind that is they do less M&A. They don't like their ownership to be diluted, so they do less M&A. So organic growth, normal growth is about the same. They do better on sustainability. Surprise, surprise, but they do. Again, very few of these foundations that I mentioned before actually had any or much idea of sustainability 10 or 20 years ago, and certainly not when they were founded. This wasn't what they were doing, but they woken up and they took it. So basically, I have nice graphs which will show you that they, yes, they do better on sustainability on E, on environment, and S, social, not on G. The G ratings are about the same, no different, but E and S. So they do more for the environment and more for social factors, like the employees. They practice long-term governance, and you can measure that in different ways. Of course, these foundations don't sell their shares, so ownership is stable. Management is also stable, so they tend to retain their boards for longer, to retain their top managers for longer. They have less leverage. They don't use so much debt because they hate to gamble with the company. Maybe also one reason why less M&A. They have more R&D, and they have higher survival rates, substantially higher survival rates. With regard to their stakeholders, we know a little bit, especially about their employees. The employees get paid better, 6% better, as I remember. They have longer tenure. They stay for longer in the company. They are better educated, and the companies also have good reputations, good kind of stakeholder reputations. This is what I can say. They have better corporate culture, which is my most recent study. So how do we actually measure corporate culture? There's been a kind of a problem here. Some of my fellow researchers use it by scraping the web, so they try to look at good words, and I don't think that's the right way to go. I think a better way is to look at what we can do. Using the Danish data, we can use the crime statistics that we have. So all crimes in Denmark for 20 years are registered under the social security number, and I have this data, right? And I can link it to the companies, and I can see if there's a difference in the crime rate between foundation-owned companies and the others. And yes, there is a difference, a significant difference, and sure, it's lower, right? So basically, you can say that so it's an indicator, so to say, that the culture is better. Then their profitability is related to what you could call good governance. So there's something about not too much overlap between the foundation board and the company board. There's something about, if at least for the bigger foundation-owned companies, it's good if the foundation has an identity of its own. If they're very close to the company, what happens is that the foundation gets swallowed. The ownership function disappears. That's not good, because ownership is good if you can put checks and balances on the company management. Not distrust or anything like that, but just knowing that there's somebody else who is with you, and if you should stray, they're always there to help. So about the national average, if you think about it, these foundations, the large foundations, what would be the alternative to having a foundation? The alternative would be that the top 1% would own them. The top 1% of the population, in most cases, right? So I can tell you that if we do these statistics, and see what would happen, we can just add the fraction of foundation capital to the wealth of the 1%, and then we can do the calculations again. It matters, right? In a country like Denmark, where we have it matters, So Denmark would be a substantially less equal society if we didn't have these foundations. And that's another reason which you might not have thought about, why this is a really good idea that you're having here with promoting steward ownership. They also tend to stabilize the economy. So in bad times, they fire their employees less quickly. They have more patience with their suppliers and so on. We saw that very clearly under the corona crisis, which we're now studying. So you can say a lot of good things. Can't we say any bad things about maybe not the topic for today, but I would say one bad thing right now is that they're rare. If they were so great, why don't we see more of them, right? And I think the reason, that's a very obvious reason, it actually requires a sacrifice, an economic sacrifice for the people who run them, because they could be part of the 1% or hope to, but they don't, right? They chose another way. So basically, not all people have that motivation, to be honest. That's one reason. The other reason is it's difficult. even in Denmark, it's difficult to establish a foundation. There are many regulatory hurdles, lots of lawyers, lots of crap, and with slight complications, your tax status and so on, it takes forever, and you get discouraged and so on. So basically, we need to work on this legal part. We need to make it as easy as, my dream is you can establish the foundation on the internet, Fill out a form, get the board, pay in the money, that's it. You're in operation, right? That's how easy it should be, and it deserves to be. I should also say that I feel a little bit bad sometimes for the other companies. They talk about extractive capitalism, right? And so on. So if you're a pension fund, think about it, right? It's perfectly legitimate to be concerned with, your pensionists. I don't have a problem with that. But remember that very often in the dialogue we call them extractive. Also with the family businesses. Now it's true. If we do the stats on family businesses, they underperform with regard to ESG and all that. That you find some really bad apples. But the top 30% or 40% of these companies are amazing, and you might as well, on a good day, you would call them steward-owned, right? So they do a very good job. So let's remember that we want that, also that we have a big alliance here, as has been mentioned several times. We have the same purpose. We want to save the planet. We want this world to be a better place, and that's why working together in communities comes more naturally to foundations, and this would also, by the way, include public-private partnerships and all that. So the movement that Armin has started will be very big very soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steen. I couldn't have summarized the studies, which many of them I read. I couldn't have summarized them any better. And it's really, really great to be here. So is there that you are here? Sorry. It's also great to be here, obviously.
And pretty soon you're going to say, I could do that.
No. Do you see in Denmark as well a rise among startups that are wanting to move in this direction?
We're not nearly seeing enough, and I want you to help me with that, by the way. Yeah. We have to arrange a conference, because I see companies like the Danish seaweed company, they are totally obsessed with all the things seaweed can do, right? Yeah. So basically, but they don't know, right? They think about seaweed all the time.
Not looking into the ownership structures, and maybe also because, foundations are still something quite big, and also you have a lot of really older structures, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Okay, I think because we are also already a bit over time, sure. Thank you very much for having been here. I'll go to Steen if you have any questions on these companies. He's mingling around. Thanks so much for being here.